Let's go!
Welcome to the weekly Final Fantasy VII News Roundup. God, this is so bright. We are on the way to part 3. We are getting so much news, it's crazy. Thanks to Shinra Arc again for doing all this. We're just gonna start going through all of the news because Hamaguchi cannot shut up. He cannot keep his big mouth shut. Is it the same stuff that was happening when Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was about to come out? Dude was so excited to be talking about his game, bro. I appreciate the passion as someone that is emphatically excited for where this stuff is going and what is happening. I will say that, yeah, I'm here for it, okay? To take any little snippets we get and keep moving forward. So let's start here. There's been so much, bro. Just sit with me. We're just gonna be reading through a few of these things. I'll be giving call outs to where this information came from. Just chill with me for a bit. First one on October 20th, Hamaguchi saying that there are plans for a Rebirth DLC at one point, and a DLC is still possible after the third game. Yeah, that makes sense. They've already said several times that they stopped the DLC for Rebirth so they can focus on part 3, because there was DLC for part 1, obviously, but pretty clear that the story's gonna end and they'll probably make more. The franchise doesn't stop, much less they also will enable you to have some sort of like early mission, mid-game mission, that kind of thing. I can see that absolutely happening. So with the trilogy's conclusion, the FF audience will likely grow. Whether they bring another DLC or a future title, that's something they're actively considering. Whoa. That being said, once we release the third installment, there's a possibility of having a DLC for that third installment with the conclusion of the remake trilogy. There's probably going to be a much wider audience for Final Fantasy as a whole. Whether we bring another new DLC or a full title, that's something we're actively considering. I don't know if he's talking about DLC for FF7 Part 3? This doesn't come across as him actively saying, here's a whole new title, like a brand new Final Fantasy VII game. Here's part 4. No. This comes across as like a different Final Fantasy. Yeah, he means Final Fantasy in general. I think that there will eventually be the game put into all 3 parts together. Will they change or balance things? That's in the air. But this does leave the bigger question of like Advent Children DLC or some shit. You know? You're gonna make like Advent Children but playable? Shit, dude, that would be crazy if that doesn't already happen in the main game. That's already pretty fascinating news. Asking about a standalone Queen's Blood, they say they haven't determined any priorities after the release of the third installment, so things are really in the air right now. If there's enough demand, that is definitely something they can consider. Dude, I think fans made Queen's Blood in a browser game. It literally happened, bro. Like, you literally can play people Queen's Blood right now. queensbloodonline.com. Check it out later. Don't crash the website. We might have done that before. I'm very sorry. There's enough demand that definitely something they can consider. Okay. I think if you want to make Queen's Blood a mobile game, a Teppen-like, you do you, bro. Hamaguchi said, and elaborated, his recent comments on part 3 would feel more concise, explaining that he means to intend to make the third game better paced, rather than condensing its content as some had feared. Immediately putting out the potential brush fire that like, hey, so what about all the Sid stuff that was missing? Hey, what about Icicle Inn? Hey, what about that kind of stuff, right? A reminder, a very, very, very large portion of Final Fantasy VII OG has not been covered yet. There's a lot of world events and a lot of story that needs to be covered because those things do not get covered until right after Rebirth ends. Like, that's when shit really kicks in, man. You visit most of those places already. Like, a lot of the world is already visited, so they've done a lot of the work. It's just, there are so many things that happen and so many world-altering events that go down in the space of Disc 2 to Disc 3 that, my dude, there's definitely a lot of concerns from people. There's so much to cover that a lot of people were worried. If this is him, once again, coming back and kind of alleviating the fan base, if not putting out that fire, that's this exact same stuff that he was doing before Rebirth was out. The people thought part 2 was just gonna be part 1 again. It wasn't. It indeed was not. It's about making sure the pacing feels right. It's not about cutting out content. It's making sure that it feels right. The speed of the story and the progress is the progress that feels good and is fairly quick and feels like you can get through it at a reasonable pace. Wow, dude, this is literally what we were talking about. The pacing in part 1 is a little off. Part 2 is an amazing first playthrough, but it has some issues in pacing as I play through it a second time. And that's because of like the side content. It feels like the side content takes so much priority that it almost takes away from the story at points, even though it's completely optional, but you want to do it, you know? The way that stuff is introduced to the player could be a little heavy-handed and a little too much, that by the time you got to Gongaga, you were kind of like, all right, dude. You know, Gongaga is the hard out for many people, where it's like, I did everything here, I did everything there, I did everything there, but as soon as you get to these jumping lily pads with these stupid chicken fucks, sorry, this is a bit too much. This Gongaga stuff is too much, you know? And most people are like, I think I'm gonna skip this and come back later. That happens to everybody. So that's a pacing issue. Clive Rossfield, aka Ben Starr, asked VGC to ask Naoki Yamaguchi if he can voice a golden chocobo. I'll ask the team if they want to do that. I got the impression he's kind of the guy that at every event you go to, he's there, so I'm going to have to see him at London Comic-Con. I'd imagine he'll be there as well. I look forward to seeing him. My dude. Dude, if Ben voiced the golden chocobo, which normally doesn't talk, the chocobos don't say much. If nobody else can hear the chocobo, but only Cloud can hear the chocobo, that shit is so funny. If everybody else just hears work, work, and it's literally Ben Starr's sexy ass voice coming out of this chicken, that shit would be funny, dude. Yamaguchi says that having the original creators there to help to ground the trilogy in the original and keep the essence of what made FF7 what it was, in some sense, if it was just him responsible for everything, then it might wind up becoming his personal take on it as a fan. Yeah, that's smart. I mean, obviously that's always been known. Asked if he would recommend newcomers to try the OG first before moving on to remake. In a lot of ways, it's difficult to answer. A lot of people will say to me, if they could go back and play the original FF7 with no knowledge of the story and enjoy it for the first time, there'd be nothing better than that. The remake is designed to be enjoyed by people who have played the original and know it well, but also by complete newcomers. Yes, I think they're doing that well. The only part where that's technically faltered is the fact that part 2 does not really get a chance to get to its plot because it's following so closely the original game. A lot of plot happens in Midgar, and then you learn it's like the game continuing. The issue with Rebirth is that, dude, it's just a globe-trotting, postcard sending kind of adventure, man. Until you get to the northern crater, until you get right after where Rebirth ends. So that being said, like, I can see why some people get disconnected in Rebirth of like, what's the story? Like, what's happening? I honestly feel like if they have the focus that they have, the next game is going to be a friggin' roller coaster, dude. Either way is fine. You'll enjoy the game and have a similar experience whether you've played the original or not. If you have the opportunity, I'd like you to play the remake first and enjoy it as a fresh experience on its own. Yeah, because it's still doing a good job in keeping all the mysteries intact. There are definitely nods if you've played the original before. You can see how we've reworked things, and that's a complete legitimate way of playing. But if you've not played it before, it's kind of like you get to experience remake first with new graphics and presentation and have that be your first impression of the game. Hamaguchi feels that the pacing, content, and balance in Rebirth is exactly as he wanted it. He doesn't feel it's been stretched out. He doesn't feel it's unnecessarily long. To him, he got that right, and a lot of people would agree with him. I would agree on first playthrough, but some things, the seams, there's some cracks in the seams after. It's also his work, so he's allowed to, like, yeah, this is the way he would like a game, and then make changes for the next game, right? Based on feedback, that also can exist. I understand there are many people who would see that and maybe feel differently, and that's fine. I see the people who express those opinions, and that's definitely worth taking on board, that some people feel that way. However, for the third game, in terms of what I said about that and the way I'm looking at that is about improving the pacing and making sure that to achieve an even greater level of immersion in the game, we want to make sure the story development moves forward in a fairly speedy manner and with the right pace, essentially, rather than feeling slow and drawn out. Maybe not the most respectful way of saying it. Bitches are listening. I think it may have been misconstrued by people that may have said, okay, that means you're going to cut down the volume and you're going to remove story. We just talked about that. It's going to be shorter. They're going to cut it down. And that's not what I'm saying at all. It's about making sure the pacing feels right. It's not about cutting content. It's making sure it feels right. The speed of the story progresses. Yeah, then it gets into the same quote. Rebirth definitely was afraid of people missing how much content they did. I hope that's taken into consideration of their pacing moving forward to the next game. It's kind of a modern game problem, yeah. Why do you think people like Souls games so much? Because there's actual discovery. Hamaguchi saying he's very confident in the experience delivered by Rebirth. He points out that he personally plays through his game multiple times, fine-tuning gameplay and balance down to the last detail. It's actually something I want to speak about today, so I'm glad you asked that. Just to explain, the original question I had there was, they said there are some people who played Rebirth, the second game in the series, and felt that because we've added new story content, which isn't in the original FF7, to them it felt like the story was being stretched out. So they asked whether we were considering doing anything related to that in the third game. In terms of the result of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and the ultimate experience that is delivered to players, that's actually something I'm very confident in. I mean, I don't want to blow my own trumpet too much, but the way I work as a director, I don't think there are that many other directors out there who at this level at this level of work, are playing through the games that I'm directing, sitting there and going through them and playing them again and again and again just to try to see if the gameplay experience and balance feels right. Yeah, usually don't have any time, dude. In fact, it actually feels very good that we're seeing Hamaguchi going out to events across the world. Like, I feel like the guy is on his world tour right now, probably while like the co-director is handling a whole bunch of stuff on part 3. He's going out and effectively marketing his game. No, there's a lot of effort that's been put into this because I think they obviously want people to be really into it. Any modern turn-based RPGs like Clair Obscur adopted a time battle system as director of 13. How well do you think that series will be revealed today? Some interesting parts here. Clair Obscur 33 came out this year, and there's been a lot of love from fans and media for that game, but I do remember exactly as you said in your question. I felt similarly when I saw, okay, that's what they've kind of done with their game. I remember doing that quite a long time ago with Lightning Returns. It does seem to use a similar kind of system. And about Expedition 33, I think it's very easy for people to focus too much on the mechanics side of it. Yeah, we just talked about this. It's a very big story in the gaming industry this year, so it's a very obvious thing to point to. It's followed the JRPG tradition, it's turn-based, it adds all these kind of more action-style mechanics. It's clearly a part of what makes it a good game, but I don't think people should be focusing too much on that. I think the reason why it's a good game and why it's done so well and so regarded is that overall, it has a great balance of everything. It's got a great story, the culture's behind it, the backstory, it's very much steeped in French history and culture. They got that aspect which makes it unique in its own right. They've done that quite well. The subject of the story as well in similar ways is what modern drama series would do, and the reveal thing's really slow, but the idea is that you got this mystery as the story progresses, you can learn more about the world and the drama, and I think that's really easy to understand. He's not even mentioning the fact that, like, the discovery of the game's great, the music's amazing, the characters are awesome. Like, Expedition 33 hits because everything hits. It doesn't hit because one thing is good. The reason why it's so beloved and so much of us had a wonderful time with it is that everything was good. Hamaguchi says the biggest focus at the moment is getting part 3 done and seeing fans' reactions to that. One big thing he's looking forward to in the future is having the team he's put together work on something new. Those guys have been working together for so long, and they're so good at making games that 100% they are going to stay together and make more games. Would you be taking a much-deserved break, or do you have other projects you're working on? In my position, I'm the director of the remake series, so my biggest focus at the moment is getting part 3 done, seeing fans' reactions to it. In addition, I'm also the head of Creative Studio 1, so that's involved in making other games of which I'm a part of. One thing I'm looking at into the future is having the team I put together make something new. One thing that is common in the industry is that when a project is finished, the team splits and moves on. But that hasn't been happening here for like nearly 15 years. We basically got the same guys all the way from the beginning of the project right through to the end. So I'm really looking forward to the game that we create after. It could be Final Fantasy, it could be something completely different. We have not decided yet. But whatever it is, folks that have paid attention and seen what we've done with the remake trilogy, they have a great expectation and will look forward to seeing what the team can come up with. Considering how long historically Square would have their development studios take to produce and release product, it would be foolish to split up the team that has released some of the most well-received products that they have produced in the past 10 years. Let them stay as a team, let all their knowledge and information. Their next game will likely be an Unreal Engine game, just so they can have that familiarity. Then instead of having everyone split off and go to a whole bunch of different areas wherever you're needed and have to relearn things all over again, you know? Doing dumb shit is what Square's expert at. Well, you know. Yeah. He thinks his team can do better than AI? Damn. Quit making me like you. Can I have one final message? Oh, he wasn't even asked about part 3? And he's just like talking all that good shit? We're working really hard on the 3rd game in the remake series at the moment. It's coming along really well. I've got in my head the vision, the gameplay structure, the gameplay experience, the core experience, and it's already looking in a really good state. It's something really satisfying that gamers can get their teeth into, and it'll be a brilliant experience that it really should be and has to be. And as like a heads up, this line, they have known what this is since they started. The plan and execution, the execution is one thing, but the plan of what part 1 to part 2 to part 3 of how gameplay and traversal and all of this stuff, how each game will one-up the next one. The expectations are higher than ever before. They knew what each game was gonna have to deliver from like a technical perspective. We're like, by the time you get to the final game, you're gonna need full world traversal by an airship. And the airship can't just be like a point A to point B thing. You're gonna have to engage with shit in the air and stuff like that. They were hyping this up after Rebirth came out, talking about like the airship. And it was like, whoa, dude, this is What are you saying? We're going to work on that, brush that up even further, and then deliver it to the not so distant future. You really can look forward to that climax of the series, and it'll be exactly what you want it to be. So don't worry about it. It's coming, and it's just as good as you think it is. I'm very confident in the game that I'm making here. Imagine in part 1 and 2, as they're spending like all these years making this stuff, that potentially part 3 is just going to lead to this absolutely massive thing that you almost have to like intentionally hold back on some stuff, because by the time you get to like the next game and the one after, you know you're going to build the whole game around that. You also have to start realizing that like we don't know what we want until we see it. I truly feel that part 3 is probably going to be that, where we don't really know like to the degree of what they're going to do, and we're probably not going to see that until potentially summer of next year. We're not going to see like what they choose to show, like here's the cards, dude, because guess what? This is the final play. Right? It's been a big tournament. It's been like a poker tournament this entire time. So what is actually in your hand by the time it's over? There's no continuing after this. How many aces do you have, bro? Am I gonna be sad when it's over? Everyone's gonna be sad, dude. Hamaguchi says that in terms of the overall construction of the trilogy at the beginning of each game, the overall structure is pretty much fixed down, decided by Nojima. But when they started the first game, all they really decided was that it escaped Midgar. And honestly, there was nothing decided about where they're going to cut the second game and third game after that. Well, that makes sense because, dude, the original plan for Rebirth was to cut it at Gongaga. That was like the first 2/3 of the game. It wasn't going to be the first 2/3. That was the end of the game. Fascinating. It would have been 4 games at that point. That would have sucked. Luckily, they got so good at like making stuff in Unreal Engine 4 that they were able to make Rebirth much quicker. And that's crazy considering like not a lot of shit was reused from Remake. You gotta realize how insane that is, dude. Hamaguchi says there was a very big theme when they sat down when working on Remake for the first game, which was Reunion. There's 2 parts to that, and you can interpret it in different ways. Oh, dude, from the trailer. There's so many interpretations of the trailer now. The first idea is that this is a returning to FF7 after more than 20 years. The other is that the fans are coming back to meet their favorite characters, such as Cloud, Aerith, and the others. Yeah. The other side of it is how the characters relate to each other in the game itself. This is Cloud, Aerith, and Tifa coming back together again within the story as well. So they wanted to show their feelings of how that affected them was a big part of the direction for the development of the game. So that's something they took great care of in creating these scenarios where the characters are all kind of coming back together. Yeah, that was felt in the first game, dude. The scene out of nowhere when Aerith is about to take Cloud through the sector in the middle of the night, and she shows up out of nowhere and she's like, "Why aren't you in bed?" And she's like, "I'm going with you, sorry." Fine, like, let's go. And then he has the vision of the future because he's fucking connected to the live stream and immediately like sees her walking away. And he's like, oh, and it hits him in some way that it's like, why is Cloud getting visions of the future, dude? Shit fucked me up. I was like, whoa. He's literally just met this girl and he's like, why is she so important to me all of a sudden? What the hell is going on? Hamaguchi says that the biggest hurdle when working on the series, that there's an original vision, working on the project, so just to make sure they don't lose the perspective as a fan of the OG, good picture. So as a series with so many fans out there, and obviously fans are different, so there's some people who, if they change too much, they won't like that, and others, if they don't change it enough, they may not like that either. So it really is a fine balance of what they have to tread. We were just talking about this, how almost impossible it is. But they're trying to be positive and proactive about it, and try to make the version of the game they think will appeal and please to as many people as possible. It's always a difficult line to draw, and they know. It's literally almost an impossible endeavor, but at the same time they have to work out how much they can and how they should change and how much do they keep exactly the same as the OG, and drawing that line and making those distinctions and cutting, that is a difficult challenge. They have to think hard about that each time. Hamaguchi says he can't tell you when the third wave is coming out, but it is going well. He says as soon as the panel finishes, he's getting off stage, running straight back to his hotel and getting straight back to checking some levels of the game they've already created. Yep. Hamaguchi says that with the 7 Remake project, they've taken the through line of the OG story and carefully combined it with all sorts of timeline storylines and created something that can keep players feeling excited and wondering how everything is going to turn out. That's the basic concept, and you can tell how you approach is something that's not going to change in part 3. Obviously, on his end, he's got the ending of the trilogy all drawn out. But at this point, I think Shinra Arc has done this on purpose. I think this was done specifically because of people like me. Fans and new players who entered with the remake series can find it compelling, something they can fall in love with over and over again, and that's something he feels confident that they'll be able to do. I'm just gonna leave this on screen for a bit. So he hopes everyone excitedly looking forward to seeing if the OG story will change or not. We'll play part 3 and enjoy seeing how everything unfolds. That's definitely the big question. It's weird because part 2 promotes the idea that fate is not defined, it can change. That's what the main party thinks, right? We are like free of that boundless freedom, like terrifying freedom at the end of part 1. And then part 2 sort of throws that out. No, things sort of line up into place. Which character is the one that is now in charge and making those choices? Again, Sephiroth is effectively, by the time the game ends, the character that puts everything back the way it should be, makes things in his favor. You know what I mean? So it's like Sephiroth is the one that sort of removed that agency from you as an excited player, that, man, I thought things were going to be any different, and now they're not. This is still going to happen to her, you know? We were literally saying that at the end of part 1. How do you make part 2 interesting with this? What's the whole point of changing fate? To make you feel like you could save her. And they tease it constantly. Like, the entire game is teasing you, this girl's not gonna live. They do it the whole game through. The legendary sex scene. They'll handle that well. I think they'll handle that very well. I think it won't be like the Italians do. No. It's not going to be an Italian sex scene, all right?